If you're going to trespass into my home, rifle through my things, then at least have the decency to join me for supper. I'm bloody hungry.
The Lorath Nahr that we first met was a stoic Horadric acolyte of Tyrael, yet by the events of Diablo IV, he's best described as a crotchety old hermit who appears to have his best years as a warrior behind him. However, looks can be deceiving. What events led to this soldier of justice to slip into the shadows of obscurity and to lead a quiet life of solitude? Let us examine today the rise and fall of Lorath Nahr.
Hell is coming, brother. Hell is coming.
Before we introduce Lorath formally, it's probably worth examining his role as one of the Horadric Order. According to the developers and the behind the scenes of Reaper of Souls, the Horadrim started out more of a motley mage gang and needed a new aesthetic to match their more martial role guarding the Black Soulstone in Reaper of Souls.
This was an order of human warrior mages that Tyrael created long ago to help him do things on Sanctuary, like hunt down the primevals and all of this. So we realized he could restart the order, and it just seemed to make sense that he would get these mortals back on his side and help him with the Black Soulstone and finding a place to hide it.
Tackling the Horadrim as a kind of an emergent faction again in the franchise was interesting from the visual standpoint. It kind of felt like we needed something a little other than a bunch of kooky-looking wizards. We needed kind of guys that had more of a martial feel, like they could, throw a punch as much as they could throw a fireball.
We had these reference images they give us, and there were these mage characters who had lion-based Horadrim Guard armor. And they had this whole lion head and the paws, the mane, the whole 9 yards. So from there, it's how we progressed into what you see in the game now.
The Horadrim went through many different revisions where we started to start to pull off that armor, leave various portions of the armor on just for a little bit of show, but became much more looking like sort of like a wizard or a warrior wizard, has some sort of deep dark secrets, but isn't as armored up and beefy as the original character.
They would all be very tough, badass guys, but of course, fighting the Angel of Death is pretty impossible.
Our first mention of Lorath Nahr goes back to the events of Storm of Light, the novel set in between the events of Diablo III and its expansion Reaper of Souls. Lorath grew up listening to tales of the Horadrim, growing to admire them, saying, "I used to pretend to be a Horadric hero when I was a boy, fighting monsters with my wooden sword. It feels like a long time ago." During the novel's events, Tyrael had successfully absconded the high heavens with the Black Soulstone in an attempt to prevent further corruption of his home from the stone's presence. It was in this book we see his recruitment of the last few members of the new Horadrim, including Jacob Starlick, Zale the Necromancer, Shannara the Wizard, Ginvir the Barbarian, Mikolov the Monk, and Thomas and Cullen of the first ones. An order that tried to take up the charge of the Horadrim, but were corrupted by the lesser evil Belial.
You have done well, Horadrim.
At the culmination of these events, Tyrael called the other members of the Horadrim to take the Black Soulstone deep within the ancient city of Corvus near Westmarch. It's here we formally meet Lorath Nahr, and he seems to be Tyrael's most relied on agent. Soon after, Malthael appears before Tyrael and his Horadrim as they're mounting the Black Soulstone in its resting place, and the former Archangel of Wisdom promptly kills everyone in the room, save for Tyrael and a single Horadrim who escapes to go find the Nephilim. And from the entry quest to Diablo III, it's revealed that this one warrior mage is none other than Lorath Nahr, as we, the player, meet a young Lorath as we begin our journey, and he greets.
The Nephilim! Tyrael sent me to find you. Malthael has taken the Black Soulstone. You must come with me.
People are dying in that city, lad. I won't abandon them.
But you and Tyrael need to form a plan. We must find Malthael.
Tell Tyrael I will meet him in Westmarch. Go!
It will be done. I swear it.
Throughout the course of events of Reaper of Souls, Lorath Nahr serves as both a source of intel and an accompanying companion to the hero. We see throughout the expansion Lorath displaying the extent of his beliefs. Nahr is a paragon of justice, even to the point of defying the Nephilim, someone who destroyed the prime evil at the Crystal Arch as they then search for Adria with every intent on murdering her. However, Lorath opposes the bloody quest for vengeance and wants her brought in for questioning to be dealt with in a more concise manner.
Wait here, Lorath. You can join me when it's finished.
You're going to kill her, aren't you?
I will do what is right.
We are all counting on you.
Of course, we all know how that turned out. Adria, being a blood demon, pays with a precious crimson ichor. Lorath proves to be the proper mirror image of the aspect of justice, and quite the complement too, as Tyrael now exists, in even in mortal form, as the aspect of wisdom. So, if Lorath was a great warrior and he was a paragon of virtue and justice, the right hand of Tyrael, what happened? Well, over 50 years passed since Reaper of Souls before we meet Nahr during the events of Diablo IV. His order, the Horadrim, once again are reduced to a paltry few, barely remembered for their heroism of the past, just as what happened to Deckard Cain when we met him during the events of Diablo I. However, unlike Cain, who admits he grew up hearing tales of the Horadrim and believing them to be mostly fantastical, Lorath had actually lived through these events firsthand. So, it's heartbreaking that even the developers of Diablo IV describe the Horadrim at this point, and most pointedly probably at Lorath,
even the Horadrim are but mad old men talking to themselves, talking to graves, clutching their bottles as hard as they once clutched their swords.
And unfortunately, when we meet Nahr, their assessment seems to be wholly accurate. And while there are some holes in his history and the events that transpired to his downfall, here's what we do know. Lorath went on after Reaper of Souls to build another group of Horadrim, building massive vaults within various locations, including the mountains of the Fractured Peaks, and hid them behind veiled illusions that would keep anyone seeking their secrets within from obtaining their precious and dark knowledge. Speaking of the knowledge they held, in leaked images from the upcoming Book of Lorath, we see several entries detailing the history of ancient Horadrim, demonic matters such as the Hellforge and great beasts from the Burning Hells, and even artifacts relating to the prime evils themselves that would no doubt be valuable to demons, perhaps even Lilith herself, and her cult of Triune that has reformed. Even when we, the player, visit the depths of the vault, we do find a tome, and recorded within, the secret rites of Rathma himself are there, deep knowledge held close by the clandestine priests of Rathma. The vast wealth of the information the Horadrim held is quite realistically too dangerous for the hands of mortal men. It is, perhaps, for this reason that the Order eventually sealed their vaults and wandered off into their own hermitage. Was the weight of the information so much they could no longer handle it, and now these dark ages? Another very plausible theory is, unfortunately, much more personal. At the beginning of the Diablo IV trailer, we see Lorath drinking by a gravestone talking to a quote-unquote old friend, and we know two people Lorath considered old friends for certain. One, the Nephilim hero of Diablo III who defeated Malthael with Lorath's aid. But seeing as there was a confirmed group of Nephilim, it's unlikely that just one would be earmarked as the official Nephilim, who unfortunately passed, and he would still consider an old friend. Two, another mortal we know who could die, and we haven't seen in Diablo IV, was the Order's creator, Tyrael. It has been shown time and again, Tyrael would form the Horadrim, and when their duty was fulfilled to capture or defeat a prime, they would usually disband and then seed into the annals of history, mostly forgotten. Therefore, it's probable that the former Archangel of Justice has perished in the last 50 years. By whose hands? It's unclear. But what we do know is that whatever event happened was cataclysmic enough to break the Order and send one of its greatest into a life of reclusion. Hopefully, the Book of Lorath will offer more insight into the nature of his descent. As the old codger becomes our guide, this broken shell of a man becomes the narrator of the events of Diablo IV.
You think me mad, old friend, but I know these dreams. They tell of the future. Hell is coming, brother. Hell is coming.